what were some of the things that you've experienced as far as selling a beat in your earlier days as opposed to now? Like, how did that work? How was the first few beats sold, and what was the vibe like on selling your first few beats to maybe, I guess, local artists or any
Yeah.
artist?
So are my answers too long, by the way? I feel
No,
like
no,
I'm
by
talking a
all
lot.
means, this is what it's about. This is not the
Okay,
battle.
great.
This is not a battle. This is just talking,
Perfect. Okay. Well, I like just,
chopping
spreading
it
as
up.
much wisdom as I can.
Right.
Yeah, so I never got into any real local shit. To be honest with you, I was always really over the internet for the most part. Um Actually, for after the first beat battle, I linked up with a couple artists that had just approached me in the crowd in 2016 and did a little bit of that, but didn't really go anywhere. But I first started having a little bit of success selling beats just on off YouTube, like most people do, just putting up tight beats that weren't really all that good. And were like pretty low production quality, especially in terms of like the YouTube videos. And it was pretty slow, but I would sell like a couple beats a month when I was doing just straight hip hop. And then it really started to get like traction once I started doing lo-fi stuff, which is like the chill, like kind of boom bappy, jazzy, or like sad shit. And I started selling beats like that. And that started getting a lot more reaction. And then from that, I started putting those out under my own name, which ironically opened a lot more doors to produce stuff. So I'm trying to see how streamlined I can make this, because it was like a very winding road in terms of like selling
Right.
my
No, that's
first
that's
couple
that's
beats
what
to
that's what
now.
that's what we want to know.
Yeah. So basically, once I saw that those beats reacted well as type beats, like as beats for artists, and I was selling them and I set up a beat store and things like that, I started putting them out as my own shit and then focusing on that, which built me up a following or whatever. And then has now brought me back to producing for other people, but like through major labels and things like that. And the differences between those is, one, obviously there's a lot more money in producing for big artists in terms of on a per beat basis. Um, but like I was never the biggest like type beat producer. Like I never sold that many beats. I've always had a lot more success as an artist, but there's a lot of money to be made selling type beats if you can get it like really rolling, and it's just free money, and it's a lot less work than label shit, because label shit is very fleeting a lot of the time. um and there's a lot of bureaucracy, and yeah, so I don't know if that answers the
Oh,
question, but
that's probably more than we actually bargained for to hear. So that's
okay,
excellent.
well, I
Because a lot of
appreciate that.
producers don't know the politics. Like I put up a poll we put up a poll, I think 2 or 3 days ago, on publishing. Like how much producers actually know about publishing.
Yeah,
Would you prefer like a admin deal or a co-pub deal, or do you even know
yeah.
about publishing? Period. And the majority didn't even know about publishing. They were answering the question, but they still didn't know what they're answering because they don't
Right.
know
So
about
I
publishing.
I can address that a little bit too, in terms of publishing, because publishing and record labels are two separate things, right? So the money that I get for a beat if I do a song for Atlantic or whatever, right, is that's not on the publishing side at all. So you don't get any upfront money on a per song basis for publishing. You get upfront for the master of the song, which is what producers make most of their money from. And then you're publishing. So I have a co-pub deal for what, like, for anybody wondering, and that's really a separate. And the money you get from that is usually upfront for a number of years. So it's a large sum upfront, and then they basically collect all of your publishing until that recoups.
Right.
Um, but it's totally separate from the upfront money that you get for like selling a beat, quote unquote.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. So you can kind of get two pots of money, but
yeah.
it's
There's two. Well, sort of like, yeah. Sorry, yes, you can. But in terms of like producers signing a deal, traditionally a producer would get their big deal from the publishing side of things, which is not from a label,
right.
and it's an upfront sum
Right.
versus the beats that they sell. Anyway, sorry, I'm
No,
fucking
that
going all over the place,
this
but
is exactly what they're tuned in to hear, because there's
Mhm.
producers at home who all they do is they just start, they might make beats on whatever FL, Ableton, whatever, and they can make beats, but they've never really engaged with the business side or the industry side. They know nothing
Yeah,
about that. They don't know nothing about a publishing deal.
yeah,
They don't know nothing about the difference between publishing or the record label as you described. So they need to know all of these things. So everything you're saying
yeah.
is jewels, is gems.
Well, that's great. And I don't pretend to know everything about, like, it gets so complicated,
It
and all the
does.
different sources of revenue and how labels account for it. and how publishers account for it, and performance royalties versus mechanical on the publishing side. Like it's so confusing.
Right, right,
And I have a manager that mostly does all that stuff,
right,
because it's like, it's honestly, once you get to a certain point, and a lot of producers are at this point, like it's not like you need to be the biggest producer in the world or anything, like, not, because I'm certainly not. But it gets to a point where it just like isn't even feasible to really do it yourself, at
right.
least in my experience. So, but that's something to worry about later down the line for a lot of people.